It's Brian Preston, the money guy.
And so if we're going to talk about this Jones family, we ought to talk about who they are, right? Because let's assign some definition to what the Joneses are and what's most likely going on behind the scenes.
And we're very fortunate. Sometimes I think, well, everybody knows that. But I'm like, no, I know that because I do this for a living, and people, it's like coming to your doctor. You know, a doctor probably thinks it's not unusual that they say, okay, put on this robe. Keep your underwear on, but put on this robe because I'm going to look for moles and other things when you get your annual physical. They think that's commonplace. But if you went to your next door neighbor and they had a robe waiting for you and said, hey, put this on and I'll be in a minute, you'd be like, what in the heck is my neighbor doing here? You know, but that's kind of what we ask people about financial things constantly. So we think it's kind of commonplace. But because we work with successful people, because we ask people a lot of things, we just kind of know that this is what's going on with people and their finances. So let's talk about perspective on who these Joneses are. The first thing is when you see people who are out there spending and you go, I think I know what they make and how can they afford that? I can't afford that. Right. They very well could be broke and just straight up faking it. I just want you to know this because look at these stats. I want to give you some meat. I don't want this to be, well, just because Brian said it doesn't mean it's right. Let's give you some facts to support this. Remember, we've mentioned that Go Banking Rates has a study that they do pretty much every year. And the most recent one shows that 60% of Americans can't put their hands on $1,000.
They literally, if an emergency happened, there are not resources available to allow them to hit a deductible, pay for an emergency room visit, fix the heater, replace the AC. That stuff doesn't exist.
Now, I know you guys, this is one that you probably are thinking, Brian, that's ridiculous. Because you guys, you're watching a personal finance show. You're not wired like everybody else. You got some of that financial mutant stuff going on. So you're probably thinking, I got $1,000, but so you're part of that 40%, but there are a lot of people and you probably have them in your circle of people you work with, relatives, and other things like that. But 60% of Americans have trouble coming up with $1,000. Here's another one. We did our most recent big show was with Carter Thomas, one of our associates here. We call him the kind of the credit card guru of knowing things. Carter had shared that the average level of credit card debt is $16,000. Wow. I mean, that's people who are not paying it off every month. If you base that off of average median income, if you were carrying $16,000 of credit card debt, that's big. You're not paying it off. And here's the other thing I know. This guy right here is not carrying a balance on his credit card every month. He's paying it off. I know I'm not carrying a balance. I pay it off every month. That means if you got people like us that are not carrying
somebody's bringing the average up.
Somebody's got that average pushed up to 16,000. That means 16 might just be the tip of the iceberg. Yep. There might be a lot of people out there with $30,000, $40,000 of credit card debt.
So let's combine those two, right? So a number of folks don't have $1,000 to pull, and a lot of those same folks have, on average, $16,000 of credit card debt. Yep. So it's just a compounding negative thing. And then what about the third one?
And here's the thing. What is the trophy to show how well you're doing?
The thing that I feel like, and my wife and I talk about this all the time, is an automobile, is a car. Somebody buys the new, the nice, the big, the fancy, the shiny car. And here's the first assumption that we always make, and I even fall victim to this. Anytime I see someone pull up in a brand new car, I say, oh, they must be doing pretty well.
Yeah. I mean, it's this consumer society we live in, is that is your car. Because, look, your house is a big part of it, but most people don't actually come to your house.
Right.
I mean, you drive to work, when you go to the Target or Target, wherever you're going, people don't follow you back to your house. They don't know what your residential situation is. But when you pull up, that's your calling card. That's what the consumer society wants you to see. So that's led to the stats of, at the end of 2016, the average car loan is $30,032. And that's just what they owe.
Okay.
That's the car loan. That doesn't mean the car is probably, because they had to put down something, with an average length of 68 months.
68
What
months.
I will tell you, I try to take this a step further for you guys, because I want to go deep with this stuff when we get into it. 68 months is over 5 years. Yeah. I mean, that's getting very close to 6 years. I want to know, do these people even drive these cars that long? I mean, because that is a very vicious cycle. Because we all know depreciation loves the front end of car ownership.
And if you are someone who you have this 5+ year auto loan and you change out your cars more often than every 5 years and you're never driving a paid for car, let me just tell you from personal experience, they drive a whole lot better when they're paid for.
Yeah,
so you
it's
really
true.
ought to consider seeing what that feels like.
So the first thing that could be going on with the Joneses that you're all worried about keeping up with is they might be faking
They
it.
very
The
well could be.
second thing, and I thought I had some cool stats on this too. The second thing to be careful of and have perspective on when thinking about the Joneses, they may be getting outside help.
Yeah. Yep.
You know, we hear about millionaire next door principle.
Mm-hmm.
Economic outpatient care. This is when an adult is, a person is giving economic support to their adult children.
That's right.
And here's a stat that blew my mind. And this is dated as of December 11th of 2017. So this is only 4 months ago.
Right.
Here's the headline from USA Today. Nearly 75% of parents help their adult children financially. That's 3 out of 4 adult children
Right.
are getting help from their parents
Yeah.
still. That blows my mind.
That's a
So
big
when
one.
you're trying to keep up, because this is something, I think this really hit me in the 20s and 30s, because you find out later, because we do this for a living, you find out that some in your peer group that are doing well, maybe they are getting that $10,000 to $15,000 annual gift from a wealthy grandparent
That's right.
or their parents. You're never going to be able to keep up with that. So if you were trying to fake your life to keep up with somebody who's getting an annual gift of $10,000 to $15,000, it could give you a bad perspective on what you're doing financially.
A small aside, maybe you're listening to this and you are one of those people who, you've been blessed where your parents or grandparents are gifting you assets. You should really ask yourself the question, what am I doing with that? Am I allowing my lifestyle to creep up, or am I really capitalizing on this opportunity? So that's something to kind of think about too. If you're asking yourself, am I the Joneses right now?
And I don't want this because, look, I'm a happy guy, so I don't like seeming negative, but I feel like one of the hard parts of our job is that we do have to give bad news sometimes. One of the perspectives that I always tell people when I find out they're getting outside help and stuff, I say, are you a creator or are you a consumer? Because if you are one, and I'm always impressed with children, adult children, who have successful parents who then take those level of assets to the
And
next
turn it into
level.
something else, yeah.
The Ted Turners and the others
Sure.
that you hear about that, because that is something that I always ask people, are you a creator or are you a consumer? Because it is sad that the vicious cycle of wealth creation is, we talk about this all the time, is that the majority of your millionaires out there are first generation.
They built it, they created it.
Second and third generation, kids and grandkids blow through it, and then we recreate
Cycle
this
starts all over.
process. So let's see if, ask yourself, am I doing something to be a creator of additional wealth, or am I just consuming the resources? Here's another thing about they may be getting outside help. It doesn't have to be just annual gifts. They might know, your peers, your neighbors, your friends, they might know, hey, mom and dad are doing okay. I'm going to eventually get that money. So because they know they might have an inheritance waiting on them, they don't have to prioritize saving and building that army of dollar bills like you do. And here's a stat. Let me give you a headline that I found for the article, because people thinking they're getting an inheritance. 68% of young people expect an inheritance.
Okay.
So that's getting close to three quarters.
Yep.
But here's the rest of the story, as Paul Harvey would say. Yet only 40% of their parents will leave one.
So when I hear,
That's even worse. That's
when
a
I hear
compounding.
That's terrifying
It
to me.
is. That's
because if
awful.
I'm someone who's saying, you know what, maybe I don't need to build up the 401k, maybe I don't need to fund the Roths, because I know maybe it's 10, 15, 20. I don't know when it's going to happen, but at some point in the future, I'm going to get an inheritance, and that's going to be my retirement plan. And then you get there, and and what you thought was there isn't actually there. That's terrifying. That is absolutely terrifying.
So I want you to think, just like we talk about financial independence, I want you to have an independence mentality, is that even if you come from successful parents, try to have that creator mindset that you are going to be self-sufficient,
Right.
or at least use the resources to continue to grow. And I think that could really do some positive things. So we've heard the two things. We've got the people who are faking it
That's right.
on the Joneses. We got the people that are getting outside help.
That's right.
There's a third group of people that I wrote down in the show notes.
Okay.
It was those that are just assuming, you know what, it's all going to work out.
I want to say it's not really free spirits, but it kind of is that free spirit. I'm just not
No
worried
plan.
about it. I got retirement, and that's just way out there. That's in the future. I have time to figure all that out.
Living for the day.
That's right.
And there are people, I've had conversations where I've talked to people and I said, hey, why don't you get in the habit of just just a little bit. I mean, let's just start the process of saving $25 a month or $50 a month. You heard me do the show for my 14-year-old. I mean, if you can get a teenager to start saving money, why can't you get somebody who's out there in the workforce doing it? But there are people that say, Brian, why would I do that? Why would I put off? I might not be here 2 years from now. I've actually had this answer given to me is, Brian, I don't even know if I'm going to be here 5 years from now. So I'm going to enjoy this money right now. So they have no plan. They're living more of letting life happen to them than being the lead actor. They're more of a support character than actually taking a lead role in their financial life. And usually these are the people, because what is the first thing when you see all these surveys of 60-year-olds, 70-year-olds, that one of the first things they tell you in all these surveys of these older people is that, I wish I'd have started sooner.
Yep.
You always hear that. I wish I'd have started sooner, because they, that person that's living for the day, living for the short term, when they get older, because more than likely the statistics show we live to a ripe old age, you have a lot of regret, because we're going to hear in a minute that if you can just let that money work for you, that army of dollar bills, getting it to work as soon as possible, much more successes in your future.
And so if you are someone listening to this and you happen to be younger, and I'm going to classify younger as if you're 40 to 45 years old or under, right? If you kind of fall into that realm, things are changing that are a little outside of your control, where maybe for your parents and grandparents, there were some backstops that might have been there that might not necessarily be there for you. And the two big ones that we're talking about are, one, Social Security, which used to be the majority of someone's retirement savings. And then also you used to go work for a company for 20, 30, 40 years, and then you get a pension. Both of those things may not be there for you when you get there.
They're on shaky ground,
That's right.
no doubt. So here's the thing. We just went through what is creating this mindset of keeping up with the Joneses, and how can people that you're looking at, and you know what you think they make, and you see the lifestyle, you see them buy the cars, the boats, the big house, and you go, how in the world are we going to do it? We just gave you the 3 ways. And I can tell you this, it is so liberating when you realize, you know what? I can't control their behavior, and there might be something that I'm not aware of that's actually enabling and making that behavior. Why don't I quit wasting all that energy and focus on what I can control?
That's right.
And that's very liberating.